Hi, my name is Miki Biggers, and I am a social worker and counselor at Hope Cancer Resources.
And my name is Lauren Dallas. I'm also a social worker and counselor at Hope Cancer Resources, and we're part of the emotional support team with Hope, so we can provide individual couples counseling. We have a variety of support groups available for cancer patients, survivors, caregivers within the Northwest community, and who is receiving treatment in this area.
Yes, and we decided to have a conversation today and to put it out to anyone who is listening to talk a little bit about COVID and how it has impacted our cancer community. And we wanted to just have a conversation around some things that we've been hearing on a daily basis, concerns, issues, common emotions that cancer patients and their caregivers have been experiencing. And then hopefully also we will be talking extensively about some coping strategies that maybe you can use during this time to help decrease some maybe fear, stress, anxiety.
Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of things, Miki and I have talked about some stressors that people are experiencing is the anxiety, isolation, lack of control, uncertainty. I think we've also been talking to a lot of cancer survivors and caregivers, and they're already dealing with these factors with their current treatment, with recovery, with, kind of that prognosis, what to look for moving forward, and how to reduce some of these symptoms, I think is an ongoing process for them throughout their life. So seeing the parallel in this current situation that they already have this skill set, they've had this experience before, but now seeing that a lot of their support that is outwards that they may have relied on is also experiencing similar concerns and stressors.
Yes, and it just seems very ramped up for everyone at this time, but then again, this specific population, already being a cancer survivor, it just is an added layer, of stress and concern. And so, one thing that I talk about a lot with my clients is just being in this kind of survival mode, which when we say survival mode, some of you may have also heard it called this fight or flight, which is the body's kind of natural response to perceiving a threat. And so when the body is perceiving a threat and your body is doing all kinds of things physically to prepare to fight the threat, which is cancer, is COVID-19. And then what can happen is when your body is preparing for that fight or flight is it is shutting down kind of the thinking brain, and it's flooding your body with hormones, and you might feel some symptoms that are you might commonly experience even with anxiety, maybe feeling very tense, maybe your heart rate is increasing, maybe your breathing becomes, more shallow and intensive. What happens is when your body is in that fight or flight mode or that survival mode, it shuts down, the thinking part of our brains. And when that happens, sometimes it can be difficult for us to kind of rationalize what exactly is happening in our environment. Our brain is just really taking control, and our body is responding to that. So what we are hoping to do today is talk with you about some things that you can do to reconnect the mind and the body and really kind of interrupt that stress cycle or that fight or flight cycle, where we can get the thinking brain back online and we can start understanding how much information is needed to protect us and keep our body safe, but at the same time be able to determine, what is not needed or what our body might be perceiving as a threat that's not really a threat to our safety.
And I think just yes, exactly. I think the piece too of coming from a reflective place instead of a reactive place, I think really trying to find a opportunity for us to have space to make this determination instead of feeling like that panic or that reactivity. Again, that survival piece. Trying to kind of slow that down and connect back, reground
Yes.
ourselves in that. So
Yes. So we're really hoping today, as I said earlier, that you're going to leave with some, maybe some mind, body activities or options that you can use so that you can kind of have that space that Lauren was talking about to really kind of refocus and calm that stress cycle. So you're not feeling like you're walking around in this heightened sense of anxiety and stress all the time, this feeling of overwhelm.
Yeah. So we're going to move into just that ways to cope piece. Does that sound good?
Yes. Yes. Let's do it.
So one thing that we have been doing with Hope Cancer Resources, our Facebook platform, with the support from Catherine Miller, she's been able to upload some different techniques and some different strategies, some different prompts that may be helpful during this time. One of them is the combating isolation checklist that we uploaded, that you can access on the Facebook platform. But what we were thinking is we're going to go through that and then kind of expound on each of those pieces. So on the first part, the first suggestion for coping, number one, is talk to a friend or relative for at least 15 minutes. So I could, kind of expand on that. Miki, go for it.
Yeah, no, again, I think one thing that we hear commonly from cancer survivors and also caregivers is that they feel isolated. They feel alone in what they're experiencing, and then also feel isolated because sometimes, maybe people who they really thought, were going to be present or be there after their diagnosis and during treatment, maybe those people aren't able to be present in the way that the survivor, maybe expected them to be. And so oftentimes we hear that can be very isolating for people emotionally and mentally. Whereas there's also that physical isolation at times, because when you're compromised, you are already worried, even before COVID, about going out and being exposed to something that could potentially be life-threatening.
Definitely.
And so we know that with the current constraints, after COVID kind of has come on the scene, we have been asked to social distance, which has further increased, I think, that feeling of isolation for some.
Definitely.
But there are ways that we can, even if we can't be with someone physically or be present physically with someone, there are some really great platforms that have come up for us to be able to utilize so that we can still have some sense of connection with friends and family. So maybe we could talk a little bit about those.
Just going off on what you had just said, Miki, but that sharing experience now is very important. I think being able to express how you're feeling, really finding that space to hold for yourself and for others, of just really, this is a new territory for us. And so really just trying to be in that moment to share our experiences can be really helpful. There's a lot of online support groups that are specific to cancer diagnosis, roles of caregiver, survivorship, that can be really helpful to lean on during this time. Another way of connecting through different virtual platforms, I know with different smartphones, there's applications such as Zoom, Marco Polo. There's a fun one called House Party where you can log in with friends, and it's a bit like FaceTime, but you can play different games. So really just trying to navigate and explore those places that may feel uncomfortable at first, but it's just trying to reach and reach that connection, or try to meet that need whenever we're in these certain constraints.
Yes. And how great is it that instead of just being able to talk on the phone, which is also a great way to connect, but now we have, some options where we can actually see people face to face.
See someone. I think that's really great.
Yeah.
Another piece too for, with Hope Cancer Resources, our emotional support team, we do have counseling that we are still offering. We can provide the emotional support not only for survivors, but also loved ones of survivors, as well as their caregivers. Anyone that is impacted by cancer, diagnosis, prognosis, treatment, just processing those emotions. So we are currently utilizing phone and telecounseling. So if that's of interest to anyone that's listening, you can reach out to us through our main number, which is 479-361-5847. You can always just ask for the social worker on call, and they can direct you accordingly.
And there's absolutely no cost related to our emotional support services. So we do not bill insurance for that service, and we do not charge for it. But all of our social workers who are also counselors are all licensed to provide counseling service.
I was just thinking I found a quote the other day, and it's by Dr. Pauline Boss, but it stated, "Sadness is treated with human connection." And so I think that's just really important right now for us to really find ways to connect, and in all these formats, trying to be creative, but also, meeting that need. So,
Yes.
So the next one, we're going to move on to number 2 on our combating isolation scorecard, which is do a pleasurable activity. It gives suggestions such as listen to music, read a book, engage in a hobby for at least 30 minutes per day. So I think, with that, I think it's a great idea. I would even recommend it to not be anything that is social media related, or have TV, Netflix, Hulu, really something that you have more control in, such as reading a book or working on a puzzle, listening to music. You can control that atmosphere. I think currently we are being inundated with information through social media and news platforms. So it can be very helpful to reduce these when we can.
Again, important to take in enough information where we know what we need to know to be safe, but not finding a balance between getting that information that's useful and beneficial versus taking in too much information that can be harmful, that can really increase our anxiety.
Yes, definitely. And we'll talk a little bit more on a couple other points later on the card. I think some of these can be interconnected a bit. So the third one on the list is take a walk or do some other form of exercise for at least 20 minutes.
Yes, and our wellness specialist, Hannah Wagner, who's a certified personal trainer, she is working remotely from home at this time as our wellness center is currently just on hold. Again, just to minimize any risk to anyone who comes into contact with any of our staff. So while she is at home working remotely, she has been creating some great workout videos that have also been uploaded to Facebook. And she's been utilizing some household objects just to show that you don't have to have, any specialized gym equipment to be able to just get up, get your body moving.
It's very creative. It's really great. And I think it's working on a Wellness Wednesdays, I think is the coined term for it per week. So, which is really great to see her friendly face. I think, a big piece of that movement, we're all in this stress cycle, and it's important to find ways to reduce that stress. So movement is one, doing things that bring you pleasure or joy is another, connecting with others, that's another way of dispelling some of that energy. So movement, really finding ways to release that in any format. And I think it can really be catered to your level, your ability at that time. I think our energy is a commodity sometimes. Whenever going through survivorship, going through treatment, it may be compromised from day to day. And so just figuring out different ways that you can utilize some movement, finding a way to release that.
Yes.
And just that mind-body connection too.
Yes. Well, and that's a great thing about the recordings is if, you wake up one day, say it's a Wellness Wednesday, and you feel like you have, low energy that day. Maybe you've had a treatment, or maybe you're, out into, post-treatment into survivorship, and you still have good days and bad days. I mean, I think we can all say that we have good days and bad days. We just know that for people who've had a diagnosis of cancer, and even caregivers, energy definitely is affected by that, even out, years after treatment. So waking up in the morning, if a Wellness Wednesday, you wake up, you feel like today's not the day, you don't have a lot of energy to expel, or maybe you have things that are really priorities that you have to take care of, then great, the exercise routine is recorded. Maybe you wake up on Thursday and you feel like you have a little bit more energy, then you can go back to it. So and that's with our recordings on the Hope Cancer Resources Facebook page, or even like YouTube exercise videos, yoga videos. That's the beautiful thing about recordings, is you can do them anytime, when it works best for you.
100%. And I think, just touching on that, this is a bit of a guide, or just to be creative to see what would fit. Everyone has a different formula for success, and so it's just figuring out how to tweak that formula if it's not 100% at this time, just really navigating that, and just more of experimentation, I think, instead of a black or white piece to it. So yes, and giving yourself some space to permission
to be okay with maybe not doing something now, but maybe doing it later if it doesn't feel right in the moment.
I think just with the mind-body connection we were just touching on, yoga is a great one, because it does have some of that mindfulness quality about it. And then meditation.
Yes, and if you are interested in yoga, a great YouTube channel is Yoga with Adrienne. So I've heard some really good things about that. She has tons of recorded yoga videos, and also does breath work and meditation in some of her videos. So that seems to be a really good option if that's of interest and you have the capability to use internet.
Definitely. With the meditation piece, we have also uploaded some guided meditations on our Facebook page for Hope Cancer Resources to help promote relaxation and reduce stress during this time. But there are a lot of other applications on smartphones that can be uploaded. Just as you had mentioned, the YouTube for the yoga, YouTube has a great library of a variety of guided meditations. You can even just on the search bar type in guided meditation for anxiety, guided meditation for sleep, and you can even put the time frame on it for 10 minutes, for 20, or not. There's many of them that have a variety of times. So whatever feels right. I would also suggest when you're listening to a guided meditation, if someone's voice is a bit grating on your nerves, then don't listen to that one. Find one that's going to promote relaxation instead of agitation, I think. It may be a bit trial and error at first, but just being open to exploring that may be helpful.
Yes.
Just number 4.
On to number four on the combating isolation scorecard is do a random act of kindness. So I think we've seen a lot of examples of that come up, through all of this with the COVID-19. I know I've heard people take more to letter writing, something that maybe we don't do as much of in this age of technology. So just sitting down with some pen and paper and writing a letter to someone. And then also I've heard of people doing an activity with their children at home. I know a lot of people right now are at home with their children since the kids are out of school. And so making, little cards, or maybe just a piece of artwork that has some positive statements, or it's just, I've seen rainbows and sunshine and all sorts of things that are trying to bring about joy, and putting those in people's mailboxes at their homes, or kids have been doing sidewalk chalk, leaving sweet messages like hang in there, things like that.
I think it's great. There's also a hashtag that's been going around, hashtag COVID kindness, and it just, if you search that on social media, then it can pop up all these different moments in time that people are spreading kindness. Even though we are a bit disconnected physically, we can still connect in that way.
Yes.
I think another point, too, with acts of kindness, we can also turn that inward and have some acts of kindness towards ourselves. So giving us some grace during this time, or allowing space, doing things that feel comfortable to us or loving towards us. It can be really helpful at this time.
Yes. And I think, yeah, just self-care in general. You know, I feel like that's such a buzzword, self-care, but I think it's so important. And self-care can come in many forms. It doesn't have to be, you know, something really big like going to get a massage, which we can't do right now anyway. But, you know, it doesn't have to be something large. It can be something, you know, even like taking a bubble bath or just lighting a candle and maybe shutting the door and just taking, you know, even 5 or 10 minutes to yourself just to be in that space and not, you know, be on, you know, or be caring for someone else, but just to take a little bit of time for yourself.
I think that's great. I think that kind of falls into our number 5, too, on the list. A lot of these are interconnected, but 5 of just saying, laugh, find anything, an internet site, a show, a cartoon that makes you laugh. So I think that can also come into play of sparking joy, humor, play, all of these pieces that are also parts of self-care at this time. So just being creative, I think, really looking at what's out there that can help us kind of release some stress and laugh, you know.
Yes.
That can be a powerful thing.
Dog videos.
Yes.
That's what we were talking yesterday about, pet videos and how we can just sit there and watch pet videos, and it just kind of, it's really hard not to laugh or smile whenever you're watching funny pet videos.
If there's a comedy that you enjoy, putting that on for a bit, a favorite show, something that can relieve that and kind of give us that bit of release, a little bit of escape, you know, in a positive way.
Yes. Yes.
Also, for the sparking joy, humor, play, if utilizing social media or internet access to the humor and joy piece, finding the balance is very important. I think we talked about that earlier on number 2, doing a pleasurable activity or something that brings us pleasure without utilizing the social media. I think finding the balance is really important. I've been listening to Dr. Laurie Santos. She's a professor for the Yale Science of Wellbeing course. She recently went Facebook Live and had a discussion about ways to promote self-care during this time, and one of the pieces was ways to stay informed without it triggering anxiety. So limiting our information intake. She suggests being deliberate on what you are consuming day by day. Also, just have an uptake of the positive, decrease of the amount of times you access news and information. Even making a rule to cut off ability to receive news. It is okay to limit right now. So even setting it for once a day, maybe checking in the morning and then do not check until the next morning, that it still will be there the next morning. And just really trying to be mindful of that intake.
Yes. The amount of time, and as Lauren kind of mentioned earlier too, just making sure that it's a reliable source, you know, where you're getting your news information. So, you know, I know in the state of Arkansas, some of you who are listening may not be in the state, but in your respective state, maybe, you know, whichever health department, you know, is in your state. So in Arkansas, the Arkansas Health Department, and the CDC. So, you know, we know that we can rely on them to have accurate information, that's unbiased information. It's just the facts, the numbers. But again, I've heard a couple of my clients have said that they get the notifications on their phone every time there's something new in the news. So they're constantly being inundated all day long with some really, like, you know, and the point of those, you know, headlines is to capture you. It's to capture your attention and pull you in. So sometimes they can be very,
triggering.
Yes,
Yeah.
very, very triggering, and it makes you want to go and read that news story. So again, like Lauren said, just being very intentional about, how much news are you going to take in and where are you going to get that news from.
I just had a conversation with one of my clients too, and she spoke with her roommate friend about being the point person for her, of just kind of relaying like just the facts,
Yes.
and if they're, again, asking permission if they're comfortable being in that role. But that was helpful for her because watching it brought on another set of stress for her instead of just receiving it from a loved one. Was a bit helpful for her. So just really strategizing on that.
Yes. It's a great idea.
Yeah. So moving on, I think 6, we touched upon this one for the random acts of kindness, but 6, show self-compassion by simply writing down a supportive statement about yourself. For example, I give myself credit for trying. I really like that.
Yes. So I think it is really, important during this time, just to know. I hear a lot of people talk about this roller coaster of emotion. I know I felt this myself. I think probably most of us are feeling this way. If I could be so bold as to say most of us, but it's, just kind of things are changing so quickly day to day with everything around COVID that, we do feel a lot of emotions, I think, so we feel a lot of emotions at one time. Maybe from hour to hour we're feeling different emotions, and some of those emotions are difficult to have. They're hard feelings to have, and then sometimes we make judgments about that, like, why am I thinking that? Why am I feeling that? Because it is an uncomfortable, maybe space to be in. And, I think it's important for us, again, to have that self-compassion, to hold that space for ourselves, to just give ourselves grace, give ourselves, allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to feel however it is that we're going to feel, and not try to push those feelings out, because then they can end up coming out in other ways that we really don't, want them to, because they are going to come out somehow at some point. And I think, I was thinking about our CLIMB program for children and families, and when we're working with the children, we have a list of our feelings rules that we talked with the children about, and sometimes it's good to just go back and kind of think about these things. We tell the kids, everybody feels something all the time. Sometimes we have mixed feelings, and sometimes feelings are hard to have, and we can't change other people's feelings. So though those sound really basic, just kind of saying them here when we talk with the kids about them, they are things that sometimes are good to remind ourselves about, because we do oftentimes, judge ourselves for having, certain feelings, and then we feel guilty as a result, and that's not a good space to be in either.
Right.
And so again, how do we be self-compassionate, and again, not judge ourselves for feeling that way, because it's normal and natural. Again, we're in this scary space. Most of us have never, lived in the midst of, a pandemic that we've been this affected by. And so, this is all new information. This is foreign territory for all of us. So our brains are really trying to figure out, we have nothing to relate this time to. Our brains are looking for past experiences to relate this new experience to, and it really can't find anything. So and
it's trying to protect us.
Yes.
So it's searching, and it's just not computing necessarily at this time.
Yes. And so again, just okay. So this is normal. This is natural. This is scary. We're all kind of struggling together to figure out how we feel about this in this kind of just ever-changing, environment.
Yeah.
So
I think just going off on, some of those feelings are going to be hard and difficult. And so when you're in those moments, or thinking before those moments come up, like I most likely will have a moment in time where I'm going to have a hard feeling. or a feeling that's going to feel difficult or uncomfortable. What do I need in that moment that's going to best support myself physically? Is it a warm cup of tea, or is it, a cozy blanket, or, is it something about getting a hug from your caregiver, or your caregiver, you asking a hug for your partner? Just really reflecting on what are those physical pieces that can bring us comfort in those moments. A friend was mentioning the other day of all feelings are allowed right now, and I think that's so great to just be mindful of, because not having judgment of those feelings, there's no feeling that's right or wrong, they just are, and just really holding the space for them can be really helpful at this time.
Yes.
So I think the next one, number 7, do something productive you're really good at. For example, fixing something, cleaning your home, etc. I really like this one just because I like to make lists. I like to check things off a list. And, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. It also gives you a feeling of more control. I think it's really helpful to find ways to get more control in the current situation we're in. And so it can also promote feelings of being more grounded too.
Yes.
And feeling like, okay, I did this. So
yes.
I think we also were talking, Miki and I were talking the other day about a to-do list, and sometimes with to-do lists there comes that pressure of, oh, I need to get all of these things done. And so even strategizing on what if in the to-do list you put take a nap, or
Yes.
to do is to call a friend, to do is to relax, or to do is give yourself permission not to do all of these things. So even coming up with a plan A or plan B for the day, wake up and look and say, okay, is this something that I can do? Or just allow yourself to only do one of those things on the list instead of more. I feel like today in these times, if there's something that gives you pressure or stress or feeling of pressure, and it's not dire, don't do it. Err on the side of not doing something right now that's going to induce that stress or that pressure.
Yes, we're already in a heightened sense of stress. We don't need any more from our own internal pressure, for things that might not be that important for us to get done today. And so we even talked about, Lauren was talking about a plan A, plan B, even having, maybe you have 2 lists. Maybe you have a low energy day list and a high energy day list, and then you kind of determine in the morning. I know a lot of my clients tell me they know as soon as they wake up if it's going to be a good day or if it's going to be a more challenging day, so... And again, like going back to the self-compassion piece, if you have intentions to do a few things on your list, but then it just turns out to be, really a struggle for you that day, then again, kind of tapping into that self-compassion and just giving yourself the space to just rest, relax, do what your body's telling you it needs for that day.
And then going on that mind-body connection, listening to your body and saying, what is my body telling me today?
Yes.
Maybe I should rest more.
Yes. Not what is shame telling me, not what is guilt telling me, but what is my body telling me, which can be a struggle sometimes.
I think that's a great one though. Gives some direction.
Yes.
The next one we have, number 8, is tell someone what you need. It doesn't matter how big or how small.
This is a hard one for a lot of people who I meet with, who I talk with, whether you are a caregiver or you are a survivor. It's hard to ask for help, especially if you are someone who has always been in the role of helping someone else, which a lot of caregivers seem to have that maybe characteristic of being the helper. So it can be, it can feel really vulnerable. It can be very, very challenging and feel uncomfortable to ask for help for yourself.
Definitely.
So I want to normalize that, but
I think that piece too, just going off on it, is this may be something new that you aren't used to doing, so it's it's like a muscle that you haven't exercised, so it's just really practicing this. I think even having a conversation beforehand, of having a conversation about having a conversation about it, saying, during this time I may be needing some more support than before, or I may need help with these things, and it is going to be difficult for me to ask for it. So this strategizing of what needs to be in place to feel like you are comfortable asking for that. Just really exploring that with your partner can be helpful, friends or family, loved ones at this time.
And also kind of going off of that is just that transparency of even saying to the person who you might be asking for help from is to say, you know, this is really hard for me. I've never been in this space before to have to ask for help. But now I'm asking and know that this is really difficult for me. You know, and then you're kind of expressing that emotion, you're expressing that feeling.
And then you're able to tend to it better whenever you bring it to light.
Yes. But this is also know that this is providing an opportunity, you know, to the person who you may be asking for help from. Because I know oftentimes we have people come to us and say, what can I do? I want to do something. I want to do something to help, but I don't know what I can do. And I don't want to be in the way. And so this can also be an opportunity for you to provide space for someone else to be able to help. Because they might really want to, they just don't know what to do. And so you actually providing direction gives you some control also in saying, you know, maybe what they thought might have been helpful, maybe if they wanted to do a meal train, well, maybe you don't really need meals, but you really need your lawn mowed. You know, so by you saying like, oh, this is what would help me the most in this moment, that's what that person wants to do anyway. They want to do something that's going to be helpful. So you're also providing an opportunity. It's kind of like a win-win sometimes. And I don't want to minimize, you know, sometimes people really don't have a lot of support, and so maybe that's not, you know, always an option for them to ask, you know, their support system for assistance. But sometimes people might even have a neighbor, or you know, they might have someone, you know, who is aware of the situation and might want to do something.
Yeah. I think that's really great. Again, it can be difficult, but I think really just bringing to light all the emotions that come with that and just having a conversation about it can kind of diminish some of those pieces to it, the anxiety for it.
Yes.
So the next one, I think we're touching upon all of these throughout, but number 9 is practice deep breathing or meditation for 10 minutes or more a day.
This is actually a way that you do have control of regulating the sympathetic nervous system. So talking about the fight or flight earlier in our conversation, this is the way that you can actually regulate and calm down that nervous system. So by doing these different breathing exercises, which Lauren and I are going to discuss, you can actually you can even notice a difference, I think, in your body with anxiety and just noticing kind of maybe a relaxation of that like tightness or your body's kind of natural tendency towards that fight. It's really kind of a way, again, that you can control and help kind of regulate that.
Yeah, reduce those symptoms, definitely. So there's a couple different ones. I think Miki's going to share about the box breathing. Does that work for you?
Yes. So, so this is, we call this boxed breathing. So what you're going to do, one thing that people tell me, and I honestly, until I started kind of a yoga practice on my own, I did not do this. So whenever you're breathing in, I would always have a tendency, you know, just involuntarily, when you're breathing, you're not thinking about it. And so when I breathe in, you know, like I would, like my stomach would shrink, not expand. But actually, whenever you breathe into the belly, that is more helpful. So whenever you inhale, what you're going to do is you're going to actually expand your belly. You're going to breathe into the belly. And so it's like a balloon. So when you breathe into a balloon, it expands. That's what you're going to do with your stomach. So on your inhale, you're going to expand the belly and then feel it expand the diaphragm and then the upper chest. So you're going to feel it really just kind of creep up through the trunk of the body. So inhale, expand the belly, then the diaphragm, then the upper chest. On the exhale, you're going to let the breath go first from the upper chest, then the rib cage, and then the belly. So you're going to notice that everything contracts. Thank you for the word. You're going to notice that everything contracts, and then you're going to pull the tummy in as far as you can to really get all of the air out of your stomach. So again, this is really teaching you how to breathe more deeply than what you would breathe just kind of day to day when we're not thinking about it voluntarily. So again, on the inhale, you're going to expand the belly, then the diaphragm, then the upper chest. And then on the exhale, let the breath go first from the upper chest, and then it moves down to the rib cage, and then the belly. You are going to inhale and exhale solely through the nose, which is what's going to help stimulate the nerves that activate that parasympathetic nervous system, which can then, like we talked earlier, and can really counter that fear response in the nervous system. One thing that is important, I think, as well, whenever you're doing the breathing, is that the inhale is shorter than the exhale. So there is another type of breathing that is the 4-7-8 breath, where you are going to breathe deeply, like we just discussed, but you're going to hold it for certain counts. So on the breath in, you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, and then you're going to hold the breath at the top for 7 seconds, and then you're going to let that go very slowly for 8 seconds. So that also interrupts that, that fear response, that fear cycle, and helps calm the body and reduce anxiety in the body. And again, you want to do that breathing through the nose.
I think that's a really great opportunity to reground ourselves in the moment, get us back into the body. And there's another grounding technique that may be helpful during that time that you're feeling anxiety. It's the 5-4-3-2-1 exercise. So this is ways to reground us, to get us back into the present moment, the here and now. And so it is find 5 things that you see around in your environment, 4 things that you can feel or touch. So that's going to help reground us. 3 things that we can hear. That really pulls us back into the moment. 2 things we can smell. And then 1 thing we can taste. Now, I've talked to a couple clients where it's been difficult. We've just explored about the taste piece because maybe you're in a situation where you don't have food or something that will help with that sensory connection. And so even tasting the inside of your mouth can be a way to bring you back into the present moment, to reground yourself, and just center you. Whenever you're feeling a bit out of sorts, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I have a client who uses this grounding technique, the 5-4-3-2-1. I mean, it's so great because you can do it anywhere. And so she has it on a piece of paper, and she puts it on her refrigerator. And then when she's going out, she really struggles post-treatment with being in public places, especially like the grocery store can be very triggering for her. It's a lot of loud noise, a lot of people around. And so she takes this with her in her purse when she goes to the store. And if she needs to kind of have like a reset or kind of ground in the moment, she will utilize that as she's grocery shopping. Just kind of,
I love that.
Yes. So and that's the great thing about some of these breathing exercises is you can do them anywhere. And people don't even know what you're doing.
Yes.
You can use it in your car. If there's a place that you know of that's particularly triggering to you, it's a great time to use it before you get to that heightened state of anxiety.
And I think right now when we are isolated, it is limited on maybe places are not as triggering, but moments in time, events, things that we hear on the news or something like that may be triggering an emotional response. So utilizing it in that way as well. Mm-hmm. Another piece, just going forward with that grounding, I think incorporating a mantra with these techniques. A mantra can be a prayer. It can be, what were we talking about? Just a scripture, a
really
quote
for some people.
just a daily reminder or affirmation. If we physically write these down, you can put them on the fridge, your mirror, wherever you have a lot of encounters with throughout the day. That can really keep us in that present moment state of mind, that mindful piece of just really looking at what is here today? What can I do today to best support myself? Also setting an intention for the day, that can just kind of go hand in hand with that mantra. The mantra can be the intention for today, the day. It can also be just really powerful. So an intention for the day is be here and now, or
be in the present. I had a friend of mine, hers was another day, another gift. That was really powerful for her. And I think that's important, is you have to find something that really speaks to you, that's important to you.
Which that goes in like a great transition into our last one on the list, which is number 10. Yes. Identify 3 good things that happened in your day.
So gratitude. This idea of gratitude. Yes. Even though there are things that are happening on a daily basis right now, that are not, maybe they seem more negative, or things that are really difficult to cope with, which is the point of this whole conversation, right? Or is, coping through this difficult or challenging time. So how can you shift that perspective? And really focus on maybe some silver linings, or, something that maybe did go well, something that you are thankful for or grateful for during your day, which may not always be easy to find. You don't have to make a list. Even if you can find one thing throughout the day, that you are grateful for, even if it's the blooming bush, outside your front window, or a bird on the bird feeder, or, in anything that you feel grateful for. It doesn't have to be something profound or huge.
Some people do prefer journaling, some people enjoy that, and so I've heard of many people who have been creating a gratitude journal, so it keeps them kind of in that state of mind, in that grateful space. Also, just with journaling or creative writing, I read whether studies show even writing for 10 to 15 minutes can help reduce overall levels of our cortisol, that stress response, assist with emotional regulation, increase optimism, and decrease hostility, which anger is a feeling that some may be experiencing right now. So again, it's another way to release that energy in one cycle of stress that we may be in.
Another thing about the gratitude journaling is a great time of day to do that. I mean, it's great to do it in the morning. If you can do it, in the evening before bed, maybe if you've been watching news in the evening, we talked about just limiting that, limiting media coverage of everything that's going on. If you've been watching that before bed, maybe you shift when you watch the news to the morning or a different time of the day, than before you're trying to go to sleep and have a good night's rest. And so if you could shift maybe your gratitude journaling to the evening before bed, that might be a really great way, kind of a great note to end your day on before you then, try to go to sleep. And
I think having a routine, having, a schedule or structure, we all do well in structure, and I think at this time there is a lack of structure in our environment.
Yes.
So really creating a routine, like maybe a nighttime routine of having it by your bedside, writing, a bit about what you were grateful for that day, along with, brushing your teeth and getting cozy, getting ready for bed, just helping with that transition. I think another piece too, whenever we're going to bed and our minds can be spiraling, or we may have these feelings of we can't turn our brain off. There's another activity that could be helpful called thought dumping. And so you could even do this before bedtime as well. You can do it at the beginning of the day or both, whenever you want. The exercise is just physically writing out all of your thoughts, your concerns, your worries that are currently in your mind. Do not judge these thoughts. Just write whatever comes to mind, almost a stream of consciousness. when we write them down, it's creating a physical space for letting these thoughts reside. So we know that they're there. We know that we can come back to them when we want, if we want to, but just giving us an opportunity to kind of, again, allowing some more space in between that stress response and reactivity, more of a reflection. So just something to think about and maybe try. And a lot of these things we talk about, it takes some time to
Yes.
do, and some of
Yes.
them may feel uncomfortable, and so a lot of it's just suggestions and strategizing. We're all in this together and trying to figure out what needs to be in place for us to feel okay, feel supported, I think is our goal of having this conversation today.
Yes. Yes. And while, obviously during this time, our physical health is so important, and we want to pay attention to that, and we want to, be safe. We also need to focus on, I think the mental and the emotional health and even the spiritual health. I think that's so important right now. And I think we really need to pay attention to that piece of things. And so that was another reason why we wanted to do this, have this conversation today, is just to, kind of validation for all of us, but validate you, and that, what you're feeling is okay, to explain why you might be feeling it, and then to talk about ways that, you can combat some of those feelings, or,
gain more control.
Gain more control. And like we said, this atmosphere of, a lot of uncertainty. You may be feeling uncertainty already as, a cancer survivor or caregiver, but also just the uncertainty through this pandemic that, we don't really have an end point on, or an end date on. So
I think that's all that we've got for today.
Yes.
We hope that this conversation has been helpful, and that you all continue to be safe and well during this time. Again, we are available if anyone has any questions or concerns further after this conversation. We're more than happy to talk more.
Yes.
And so you can always reach us by Hope Cancer Resources Facebook page, through our email on our website, through our main number, which is 479-361-5847. But yes, we're just...
Yes. So thanks for being with us today during this conversation. And again, be well.